What's up, dude buddy guy? Or perhaps in this case, dude buddy girl. I'm Jaden Kuhlman, back with another tier list, this time of the queen of music, her generation's the Beatles, my birthday twin, Taylor Swift. Alright, we're starting with her self-titled debut album from 2006, and I'm gonna be honest with you, outside of Tim McGraw and Teardrops on My Guitar, I really don't get down to this album. This album didn't do very well on launch, only selling about 40,000 copies in its first week, leading to Taylor to develop her following slowly on MySpace. This is before Taylor would develop her voice of an angel. I love the line in Teardrops on My Guitar, he says he's so in love, he finally got it right. Come on, dude, you're in high school. But hey, these songs are from the viewpoint of a teenage girl, and I refuse to be yet another grown man trying to critique these songs. So I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna put this firmly in the C category, as in kinda no comment. It's my least favorite album by her, and I wish her the best with wherever the rest of her career takes her. Alright, we're on to Fearless, and what a momentous leap in quality, these two albums. This is like Billy Joel's Cold Spring Harbor, and then coming back with Piano Man. It just took one album to get the hang of everything. We're using the Taylor's version for reference because we do not support thievery. 15's a nice reflective song, but she was only about 2 years removed from that age when she wrote it, so it's kind of hard to get behind. However, I do prefer the Taylor's version because it's more fitting being sung by someone in their 30s than 17. Who doesn't like Love Story? Every so often her bridge or last chorus will contain a key change, and it lands on here, and it is to great effect every time. You Belong With Me would earn her the VMA for Best Music Video of the Year, and we all know how that went. I always like the Notebook romantic comedy tinged lyrics on the chorus of The Way I Loved You. Forever and Always I really like, but I always go for the piano version. I think it's much more fitting. The highlight for me of the new songs from the vault is You All Over Me featuring Maren Morris. Yep, I played that one to death. Unlike the debut, it's amazing how much more palpable this album is to just about anyone, not just teenage girls. I'm gonna put it in the B row because I gotta make room for all the ones that come after it. It showed that Taylor was a powerful new voice, not only in country but in pop, and she had something to prove on this next album, that she could do it all by herself. The next album, Speak Now, written entirely by Taylor herself. You got simple but effective love songs in Mine and Sparks Fly. Then you go into Back to December, which is probably one of my favorites. I really recommend the live version on the Speak Now tour, which she goes from Back to December, You're Not Sorry to Apologize very seamlessly. We gotta talk about Dear John. Career ending, which it kinda was for a time. Ugh, he was 32 and she was 19 when they dated, and she doesn't refrain from mentioning that in one of the variations of the choruses. This is one of Taylor's longest songs, clocking in at almost 7 minutes. It's an amazing song, and I'm gonna have this bit where if a song is one of my favorites, I'm gonna look at the recent Rolling Stones ranking of all her songs to see where it lands. So let's see where Dear John ends on this list. Yep, there it is, number 10. No happy ending, no moral, no solution, not even a lesson learned. Just a bad memory filed away. Aw, gets me every time. After that, the album alleviates its depression with Mean. This really highlights her charisma as she just walks all over the song. The Story of Us is perhaps more John Mayer slander, although it's more of a she wishes she could say what she needs to say upon seeing him at some event. Innocent is kind of a condescending response to the whole Kanye West thing. Last Kiss, another one of my favorites. We're gonna see where it lands on the list. Found it on here, Last Kiss landing at 35. You know, I'll take it. The only two songs I would omit from this album are Never Grow Up and Better Than Revenge. Better Than Revenge is kind of just like a weird Paramore Misery Business knockoff, which I'm sure the label had something to do with. Long Live, which is in my top 5 Taylor Swift songs. Actually, it lands at number 6 on the list. It's a really emotionally mature song while having a youthful innocence to it. A really great emotional bridge on here too. Speak Now is objectively one of her best albums, and most of my favorite Taylor Swift songs end up on here. I'm going to put it in the A row, or taking a jump. She still has room to improve, and we will definitely see that with her next album, Red, released in 2012. The album kicks off with the grandiose State of Grace with a soaring chorus, a perfect intro to this album. I do like the title track, however, I can't really get behind the loving him is like driving a new Maserati down a dead-end street. It's alright. Treacherous, one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. One of my favorite bridges, Two headlights shine through the sleepless nights and I would follow you home, and so on and so forth. Treacherous at number 62. Come on. You're the same guys that put New Romantics at number 2. I do enjoy I Knew You Were Trouble, but it's just strange how Taylor's such a trailblazer and then she ends up putting a dubstep chorus on one of her songs. It's just not one of those things that ages very well. All Too Well, Taylor's objectively best song, best written, best emotional potency. Do we know if Jake Gyllenhaal's alright? Have we checked up on him? I guess he was in Ambulance. That came out after the 10-minute version. It's just a flawless song. There's not much I can say that hasn't been said. I love when it goes from I'm a crumbled up piece of paper lying here, you're all the way up here. It's like just explosions. And then it seamlessly transitions into Time Won't Fly. It's like I'm paralyzed by it. I guess it was my 10th birthday when Jake Gyllenhaal didn't show up to Taylor's 21st birthday. It's a weird thought, but I gotta put it out there. All the deep cuts on here are mostly country, and then all the singles are pop standards. It can get a little uneven in the track listing. Girl at Home is one of the rare examples of a complete overhaul in sound on these new Taylor versions, where all the other songs are mostly complete replicas of the originals. I'm gonna go through some of my favorite highlights from the vault. We have Better Man, which I surprisingly had never heard the Little Big Town version, so to me this is a Taylor Swift song, and another one that I played to death. Nothing new. I love the chemistry between Phoebe and Taylor. How can a person know everything at 18 and nothing at 22? Hits way too close to home. I Bet You Think About Me. Great music video to this one. Definitely check it out. This one's probably another one about Jake Gyllenhaal and his organic shoes. Run is just kind of background noise compared to Everything Has Changed. Then of course the 10-minute version of All Too Well. It's great. A lot of people prefer it to the original, but I gotta say it's a lot less relatable than the original. I gotta put this one in the A. It's almost there. It's almost S. It's right on the cusp. This is the highest possible A I could give to an album. We will see Taylor not only completely shift her sound but perfect it on 2014's 1989. Taylor's commercial and artistic magnum opus. You got Jack Antonoff appearing on Taylor's album for the first time, working with her on Out of the Woods, I Wish You Would, and one of the bonus tracks, Welcome to New York, probably my least favorite song on the album. Blank Space cartoonishly playing into the Psycho Ex-Girlfriend label that Taylor had at the time. Style, which I can give credit to for my high school James Dean obsession. Clean, one of the greatest emotional closers to any of her albums. What a genius choice to choose 80s production over a more modern sound. As this album is just aging beautifully throughout the years, it sounds just as good as the day it came out. This will be our first Taylor album in the S tier. Next we have 2017's Reputation. An interesting choice it was to go for a modern pop sound, as in 5 years later, this album is aging like milk. The first kind of nosedive in quality of her career, and the formation of this Madonna bad girl persona, which really isn't fitting for her. I don't see Taylor in that way, but of course I don't know her personally. I really like Ready for It. Hey, nobody really likes Look What You Made Me Do, but if you turn your brain off and don't take it too seriously, it kind of slaps. This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things is another one of those songs that kind of lacks forethought. Like, does anyone even say that anymore? It's such a shame that songs like Delicate Getaway Car, King of My Heart, Dancing with Our Hands Tied, and Call It What You Want are all bogged down by these weird, unflattering, of-the-time songs like Endgame, I Did Something Bad, Gorgeous. Dancing with Our Hands Tied is actually my second favorite Taylor Swift song. We're gonna see where it lands on the list. It landed at 146. New Year's Day, a beautiful, unfitting closer to this album. It's just a shame that this album is such a mixed bag and weirdly unfocused. D-Row. Taylor went full circle with her next album cycle, Lover, which kicked off with Me as the lead single to this album, and I would choose Look What You Made Me Do over this one. It's just brutal. Then you had You Need to Calm Down after that, and then Lover as the next few singles, and I really think leading with those songs really hurt the trajectory of this album. Why aren't songs like Cruel Summer, I Forgot That You Existed, False God, Paper Rings? These should have been the singles. This album is yet another mixed bag. It's got a lot of filler. Songs like It's Nice to Have a Friend feel unfinished. I love how Cornelia Street is bookended with I Sit Casually in the Car, and you have this flood of emotions kind of taking place in just that one event. The only other song that does that comes to mind is unfortunately Nickelback's Photograph, but I mean nothing but good things. The aforementioned I Forgot That You Existed, Cruel Summer, Death by a Thousand Cuts, False God belong in the top tier of Taylor songs, some of the best she's ever written. Love that chorus on Afterglow. Looking back, the closer, Daylight, seems like a less eventful Lavender Haze. It would have done this album a world of good to have a lot of the filler cut out. Some of the highlight tracks on here are some of the best she's ever done. And this is where Taylor would really start to see some of the critical acceptance for the first time in her career. And just like 1989, I see this one aging much better than Reputation. It's still an enjoyable listen, but not one I come back to that often. Now we're on to my favorite point in Taylor's career. Beautiful, folky, definitive album of quarantine, Folklore. Tasteful Lana Del Rey worship on Cardigan in the ongoing James and Betty saga. My Tears Ricochet, which is kind of a response to the fallout between she and Big Machine Records, although not too in your face with the symbolism. I love the part in August where Taylor starts freestyling. Love the sentiment on Invisible String, although it becomes slightly less relatable with the self-referential Bad Bloodline. Betty, another one in the James and Betty saga from the viewpoint of James, with a really nice key change at the end. I love the sparse piano ballad of Hoax as the closer of this album. And then we have The Lakes, my all-time favorite Taylor Swift song. I don't play it often because I don't want it to lose its emotional potency. It is absolutely beautiful. My favorite bridge by her ever. Yeah, found it. 72. It's alright. I forgive them. I gotta say, I haven't really spent a lot of time with Folklore, mostly because I exclusively listen to the Disney Plus Long Pond studio version. I think the more raw vocals and instrumentation really help this album. With the exception of Exile and Illicit Affairs, I really prefer the originals. You'll see on tracks like Mad Woman with the new piano line in August that these songs really belong better in this live recording studio session. This album dropped at the perfect time when really everyone was in need of it, and it showed that Taylor could really pull off this sound. I'm putting this album once again in the S row up there with 1989. This sound is yet to be topped as it will in her next album. Just like Folklore, Taylor Swift will once again be working with Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner. Jack Antonoff only having a few writing credits on this one as opposed to Aaron Dessner, who really had a hand in writing all the songs. And the great Joe Alwyn also secretly steps in once again, having a hand in writing Evermore as he did writing Exile. Guy is a man of many talents. Nobody No Crime is the first truly country song we've gotten from Taylor in a while, and is also one of her only murder ballads. I love the abrasive sample that kicks off Closure, leading into a soft piano intro. Marjorie is a touching tribute to her late grandmother. I love the perspective of you wish you could go back to that time when you were a kid and ask all these questions, but it's always too late. Willow's a really laid-back lead single to this album, and it's definitely no Cardigan. This album is much more cohesive and story-driven than Folklore, relying less on grand choruses. And Taylor's lyricism and performances are much more becoming in this album. She really owns the sound that she's developed over these two albums. Folklore and Evermore are really neck and neck. Once again, I have to put this in the S tier, as Evermore is my favorite Taylor Swift album to date. Lastly, we have Midnights, which is named after my high school band. I have no proof of this claim, but being birthday twins, it kind of shows that Taylor and I are kind of on the same wavelength, except she makes millions of dollars. I guess Taylor had to come down from the high of Folklore and Evermore at some point. Of all the kind of formless songs that make up this album, Antihero was definitely the smartest possible choice for a lead single. We have a complete reversal where Jack Antonoff takes the lead co-producer role. Aaron Dessner only really appears on 4 tracks on here. This album's kind of a mix of the lyricism and attitude of Reputation with the light and bubbly pop of, say, Lover. I love Snow on the Beach. I wish Lana Del Rey were a little more prominent in the mix or had her own vocal lines. You're on Your Own Kid is probably one of my least favorite track number 5s in Taylor's canon. Question is probably one of my least favorite songs ever by her, with the weird sitcom type story of having someone kiss you in a crowded room and all your friends laughing but then applauding. It's just really strange. Vigilante Shit is really Taylor going full Reputation mode. Sweet Nothing I really do like, and Mastermind being really a nothing closer to this album. One of the biggest tragedies of this album in my eyes are that most of the 3 AM edition songs are better than what appears on the actual album. I really mean this with The Great War, Bigger Than the Whole Sky, probably the most vulnerable we'll ever hear her. And that goes with most of these bonus tracks. They're much more personal. The performances are much more powerful than those on the actual album. We also have the sequel to Dear John, Would've, Could've, Should've, which ends up being even more revealing than Dear John. And it's really sad to see that this is something that affects Taylor to this day. I wish we got songs that were more deeply personal like this one on the standard album. And Dear Reader ends up being a better closer than Mastermind, too. I'm gonna put this album in the C category. It puts the mid and midnights. But with that being said, I have a hard time believing that the best of Taylor's work is behind her. She never fails to reinvent herself, even when she hasn't fully explored her current sound. I think this album just represents a brief plateau in her career. So that's my Taylor Swift tier list and my thoughts on the album. She's one of those artists that I'm always excited to see what lays in store. This is my last tier list for a while because I don't want to become that guy. Thank you for watching. I'm Jaden Kuhlman, and I will see you at the Eras Tour.